Hello, class. Welcome to our first lesson of the year. We've talked about the syllabus and what to expect from the class this year. And our first lesson is about the order of operations. I hope that I'm not the first person that's talked about the order of operations with you. Hopefully that's something that you've seen in your previous classes. I want to clear up a few misconceptions about the order of operations and talk about some questions that you might find a little bit easier maybe after discussing that. So on this slide, I have three different questions that deal with the order of operations. What you should notice here is that in the first question, it's 3 with the parenthesis 4. Remember, that means multiplication, so that means 3 times 4 and then plus 8. And so 3 times 4 is 12, plus 8 is 20. Most students will probably get that question correctly if I just ask them to solve it, because it covers the order of operations well in terms of multiplication before addition. On the bottom left side, the 3 plus 4 times 8, a mistake that you might see is that some people will take 3 plus 4 first, but the order of operations say that you have to do 4 times 8 first and then add the 3 to it after that. So you want to make sure it's 4 times 8 and then add the 3 to it in order to find that answer. And so 4 times 8 is 32 plus 3 is 35. Now if you look, I've shown some work on both of those questions. It may be hard depending on if you're a virtual learner versus in class. You want to make sure that you keep showing your work appropriately. So please do that as you're looking at some of those questions. Practice that as you're going through. On the far right side, there's a 6 minus 4 plus 1. And this is the issue that many students have with order of operations. The first option says take 6 minus 5, because 4 plus 1 is 5, and then subtract them and it's 1. The problem with that is there's a common misconception about the order of operations that deals with PEMDAS. So you've dealt with PEMDAS before. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Okay, or it's also parentheses and exponents, multiply, then divide, add, then subtract. The problem with PEMDAS is that the multiply and divide is not first and second. Multiply and divide really go together. So you have to think about it from left to right as opposed to just multiply then divide. Okay, so I like kind of the version on the right side where it's parentheses and exponents and multiply and divide together and then add, subtract together. So going back to our question here, I should not be taking 6 minus 5 first. I should be taking 6 minus 4, because from left to right that's first, and then add the 1 into it, and that will make the answer 3. The rest of these slides just have a lot of different questions that deal with the order of operations. So I'll try to just highlight some of the things instead of just going through every detail. So for the first question, make sure you take the 15 divided by 5 first, because in the order of operations, division comes before addition. In the bottom left, you have to go left to right, because multiply and divide are just as important. So you have to go from left to right in order to find that answer. And so you have to do 20 divided by 5 first, which is 4, and then 4 times the 2, which will be 8. The one on the right side, you can kind of do multiple things at once as long as they're separated by lower categories of operations. So if you look at my example, I did 2 times 3, which is 6, and I took 4 divided by 4, which is 1. I did those first because they're separated by addition and subtraction symbols, and that's okay. And then you go through and find the rest of it. Make sure you keep showing your work on these questions when you're practicing. What you don't want to do is just show an answer. We need to know what the steps are in order to find these answers. Just reminders, the top left one on this slide, you want to make sure that a fraction is also a way of division. Okay, so 14 divided by 2 is the same as 14 over 2, and that's a division question then. On the bottom left side, you can treat that fraction bar as kind of a parenthesis, so you have to do the whole top and then the whole bottom separately. So you better deal with the numerator as if it's its own equation. So you got to do 3 times 8 first, and then add the 4, and then divide it all by 7. And don't forget exponents. Remember, 5 to the second power does not mean 5 times 2. If it was supposed to be 5 times 2, we would write it as 5 times 2. And so here it's 5 to the second power, which is a little bit different. So you want to make sure that you follow the order of operations, exponents first, and then you're adding and subtracting from left to right. The next questions look like a lot. There's just a lot of information there. So the top left version, it's in parentheses 3 plus 1, so you have to do that part first, then raise it to the third power. After you find that answer, then you can divide by 8. Remember, 4 to the third power is 4 times 4 times 4. On the bottom left question, the 5 minus 3 plus 10 times 2, if you had to think about what mistake do you think students make, they probably either take 3 plus 10 first, or they may do the 5 minus 3 plus 10 times 2, all left to right, because they say, oh, Mr. Rendell just said I have to do everything left to right. But that's only if it's the same versions of everything. So adding and subtracting, left to right, I agree. But the first thing that you have to do is multiply the 10 times 2. And then you can go left to right to find that answer. The last question on the right side, there's a lot of division there as you're looking at that, and multiplication as well. Since each section is separated by adding or subtracting, you can essentially just do them all separately and then put them all together. So I did each kind of component or box area. Okay, I like to think of it kind of in compartments. I do all of those sections first, then I start combining from left to right. Notice how many steps I wrote. I know this is hard for a lot of students because you just want the quick answer and let's move on. If all you have is an answer, that's not really going to help you later on. So make sure that you're able to show your work, explain what's going on, and then use that to help find your answer. Okay, so for today, there should be a worksheet, a PDF that's uploaded on Canvas. You want to complete that. I also included the answers on the very last slide, or I'm sorry, the last page of the PDF. I want you to be able to check your answers. This is kind of the route we're going to go this year. Normally we would kind of do more of checking once we get into class the next day. But I think we're going to put more of the ownership on you checking, and then when we get together tomorrow or whenever the next class period is, then when we discuss things, you can say, hey, Mr. Rendell, I've got a question on number 4. If you have another teacher, hey, Mr. Pritchett, I've got a question on number 7. Okay, whoever it is that you're talking to, then they can go to number 7 and say, all right, this is how I do number 7. Okay, so the expectation is that you're going to do that homework, you're going to come with questions, and then we'll go through some of those, make sure that you are on the right track with those things. Feel free to talk to one another about those questions. Okay, you want to make sure you watch all of this video to the very end to make sure you get the credit for the Edpuzzle pieces. The homework check is on Canvas, so make sure you do that. When you're looking at the Canvas questions, okay, those questions will typically cover the previous day's homework. Since we're kind of early in the year here, I just had something else for you to look at. But in the future, so like tomorrow's homework check probably covers the order of operations. Okay, so you want to make sure that you understand the order of operations. That's what your homework's there for, and then you're going to check to see if you are in the right on the right track or not. So order of operations, main takeaway, make sure it's PEMDAS, but multiply and divide go together, add, subtract go together, and it's from left to right then, as opposed to add, then subtract. Okay, have a good day, everyone.